Yeah, I started as a meme in Starcraft. I'm Creighton Olsen. I'm an esports commentator. So I first got into esports as a viewer, and then because I've never been good enough to be competitive. So I first got into esports in Starcraft 1, just watching my friends play and talking about the game afterwards. And that's sort of how I found myself on the path to becoming a caster commentator for esports. I think most people start esports as a competitor and they get really good at the game and they get into the game because of deep strategy or the competition. And I don't really play games for that. I usually play games as what Richard Bartle would call a socializer, somebody who loves connecting with other people. So I got into esports specifically because I liked talking about the game. I liked hosting events around the game. I liked going to esports events and being part of this universe that was created. And that's really what drew me into esports was the social nature of the entire enterprise. So yeah, I grew up in Kansas. After I lived in the States until I was 24, 25, I moved to the UK, completely unrelated to esports. And then when I left the UK, I moved to South Korea, completely unrelated to esports. It's always been a hobby of mine, it's always been a passion of mine, but never something I did professionally or for money. And then once I moved to South Korea, I was able to get plugged into the Starcraft scene because, of course, Seoul, South Korea is the home of competitive Starcraft. So once I was in South Korea, I started going to the live Starcraft events and realizing that, I felt at home, I felt comfortable, I felt loved.
I think Maru back-to-back champion, Josungju Haiting.
Oh my God.
Didn't start doing like Twitch streaming or anything until the tail end of my time in the UK and then when I moved to South Korea. Yeah, I started as a meme in Starcraft. I'm not joking. I went to the GSL, which is the professional TV studio production of Starcraft 2, and I look a little unusual in South Korea. I don't look like the rest of the population for some reason. I'm not sure why. So when they would go to show the crowd in the crowd shots, they would very often hit me in a crowd shot because I sort of stood out among the rest of the crowd.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSL Codas Season 3. I am Artosis, and I am Creighton Olsen. Yeah, welcome, Creighton.
So I'd make funny faces at the camera or make a joke or hold up a sign or something. And for a couple months because I would go twice a week, every week to the Starcraft thing because it was what I loved.
Meeting you.
Hi, it's good to meet you too.
What's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, my name's Creighton, and I'm from Kansas in the USA.
Kansas, that's far away. Are you living in Korea now?
Yeah, I do live in Seoul now.
Okay.
And so after a while, I'd been on camera enough times that people started to recognize me, and I was like, oh man, this is fun. I gotta get out there. And so once I became sort of a recognized face, that's when I sort of decided, oh man, I gotta try my hand at actually doing, real, professional style commentary.
Cheering up?
I think Maru back-to-back champion, Josungju Haiting.
Oh my God.
For those matches. So that's sort of how I got started, because I'd been a Twitch streamer before, but nothing, specific. I'd always played random games or played for fun. But after that, I was like, okay, I've been on camera enough now. I should start giving back to the community a little bit. The first StarCraft streams I ever did, I had to make a lobby in-game and ask people to join the lobby and tell them, hey, I'm gonna commentate your games, is that okay? And they would say, fine, whatever, I don't care. And so I would commentate games of random people I had found. And I did that for easily over a year without breaking 10 viewers on Twitch ever.
Marines pushing forward. I was going to say stimming forward, but they don't have stim. Marines pushing forward, and it looks like the natural has been seeded. Ball Savage is going to... Oh, God. No, Probius, don't look, buddy. Don't look, it's too hideous. Shield your eyes. 15 probe kills, and it doesn't matter if Ball Savage closes out the game. Now, this could be the beginning of the end for Zerg's OP. Ball Savage not even bothering. He's letting Zerg's OP GG's out, and the winner of Game 2 in, again, a very decisive manner, Ball Savage.
Practicing, commentating, streaming, and every, not every night, but at least twice, 3 times a week, really grinding very hard to get to where I was. And then I was lucky enough to get connected with a couple clans, a couple groups in game, and slowly got asked to do, some very small amateur events and organize my own tournaments. And it's sort of a slow building process, but no, it was never as easy as somebody who's coming up like, hey, you look like you're fun, come on over, if somebody really wants to be an esports commentator, it's such a unique position in the esports world. If you give me a couple seconds to talk about this a little bit, it's really interesting to me. I think most people who get into the commentary game that you see professionally are former pro players, and they very often, people who are aspiring commentators will make the mistake of thinking, I need to be a professional level player before I can commentate on the game. That's the key. I need to grind out the hours, I need to put in the practice, and that's the single most important thing. And I think that's absolutely not true. I'm not a professional level StarCraft player. I never have been. I am worse than average at the game, honestly. But if you're interested in being a commentator, it's a very unique skill set that you need to build up.
On the low ground, I'm going to drop the command center, second command center. It looks like Ball Savage is going to expand significantly before his opponent will also. So, Creighton with the scrub taunts. No, I can't taunt anybody for being a scrub. I'm a scrub myself. It's terrible. Alright, Zerg is OP, trying to hide another pylon back here, or at least a probe. Gonna get out, gonna scout out this natural expansion. Let's see if, no, never mind. 2 Marines come down here. And bam, there it is. Beautiful.
I always tell people, have you done improvisational comedy before? Have you been on camera? Have you been on stage? Do you understand how a joke works? Like, there are so many things that you have to understand socially and psychologically about how other people process information and how to make that an engaging experience. So if you're really looking for a place to start, research comedy, research improvisation, research theater. Figure out how humans interact with other humans, because basically, if you're doing an 8-hour video game cast, you're doing an 8-hour unscripted dialogue with another person in front of a camera. It is first and foremost a conversation that you're having and a story that you're telling, not necessarily a strategy that you're dissecting or a specific skill set that you're trying to undermine or develop. It's a conversation and a story, and that's where it really has to start if you want to be a commentator. I think we've all had the experience of watching an event and saying, man, that caster was great, or man, that caster was terrible. And what people often forget is that when you're listening to commentary for a game, you're listening for you, and there are 10,000 other people who are listening for something very different. So as a caster, you have to be able to find a good balance between being informative and being entertaining and talking about strategy and talking about players. Everybody is going to come to a cast of any game looking for something a little bit different.
But Ball Savage gonna start striking out across the map with this little stim timing here, and this is really cute. His opponent does have a hallucinated Phoenix out, but that's not gonna be enough. Separates out, stims up the ramp, and it looks like Ball Savage gonna go for it, targeting down these stalkers one by one, doing a good job picking off the entire fighting force of Zerg's OP, and Zerg's OP GG's out immediately. The winner of Game 1 in a decisive stim timing victory is Ball Savage.
Some people want it to be 90% commentary and banter. Some people want it to be 90% a deep dive on the strategy. So it's important, if you don't know your audience, which you almost never do on a broadcasting platform like Twitch, it's important to understand that everybody's going to come for something a little bit different. So you've got to be able to develop your style and then figure out how to make sure that you're entertaining as many people as possible. And usually if you have a good co-commentator, I know famously in StarCraft you usually want like one analysis guy and one color guy so they can kind of bounce off each other. But again, they still have to be able to have that conversation with each other and develop that dialogue and story together. I was incredibly fortunate to be able to get to sort of the levels that I was able to cast at in South Korea. And it was definitely equal parts luck and skill. I think, again, I'm fortunate to have a decent background and be a decent entertainer, which is, you know, key and very important. But I'll be honest, I made one of my major breakthroughs just living in South Korea because I met an owner of a team on a subway ride home one time. He came over to me and said, oh, hey, I've seen you on camera. I know you do some Twitch streaming. Hi, it's nice to meet you. And I sat with him at a couple games when we made a contact. Turns out he knew someone at the studio and was able to introduce me, and that's how I was able to do a volunteer cast of one of the qualifiers that somebody else saw. And none of it would have happened if he hadn't, you know, reached out to me on the subway ride home. So there's certainly a level of luck, and then once you have that fortunate turn of events, then I think there's a lot of sort of building on top of that and not being shy about reaching out to people that you want to know or people that you need to know and developing these connections over time. As with anything, it takes a lot of hard work and then a couple lucky turns along the way. The worst part about commentating in South Korea is the time zone difference. That nobody's awake at 6 o'clock p.m. on a Saturday in Korea when you're ready to cast. Everybody in North America is asleep, everybody in Europe's at work, and nobody wants to listen to your casts live. But luckily, there's not a lot of difference between casting a South Korean event and casting a European event and casting a North.
From Madlow. Very interesting that we've seen this build come out a second time so quickly. Nice, gets the deny on there. Why am I so tiny? I don't need to be large. I was watching some other streams over the week and I realized that nobody else has their face on stream when they cast. I kind of like having my face on stream because, oh, nice. Oh, he did it. The madman did it. Look at it. Oh, it disappeared because the probe died. Son of a buck. Anyway, I was watching some other streams over the week and I realized that nobody else has their ugly mug on stream. No matter how handsome they are. I know they're not as shiny as I am. Well, actually, that's not true because like DeMuslim is shiny now. Kaldor is shiny now. There's a couple other shiny dudes. But nobody else has their ugly mug on stream. I probably don't even need mine on stream. I'll probably take it off at some point. I don't know. Still trying to figure out what makes this channel different than everybody else's. What brings people to it. How we can help get more people in here.
North American event. Generally, they're all sort of the same. With an English language cast, your audience is going to be mostly the same demographic, tuning in from mostly the same places. So honestly, it turns into a question of when can I schedule my event so it's not fighting anybody else? What's a convenient time for this audience? Oh, there's a French player playing. I better make sure it's a decent time for our French audience because they'll want to tune in. But it's not that much different, honestly, than anywhere else. The only real difference is if you're doing live events, if you're flying to live events, then it turns into, if you happen to be in Europe, it's a little bit cheaper for the organizers to get you there, so you might get preference for a European event over somebody who lives in Korea. There are a couple metrics you can look at when you're trying to determine really sort of, I guess, success of an event or of a cast, and if you, depending on what your goal is, which is usually to grow your audience and grow your channel, it's hard to know what your audience is looking for. There are a couple metrics, hard numbers you can look at. Retention rates. You can look at your cast, and most places now will show, like especially on YouTube VODs, or if you stream with Africa TV, they'll show when did my viewers leave the cast, what did they stay for, how long did they stay for, and then you can see, oh, I had, premier level pros in this cast, and it got 20% more views, but my prize pool had to be 5 times larger to attract them. Was it worth it for the time and money I spent? But luckily, if you're streaming on Twitch as a caster, doing live events, there's a much more immediate feedback tool, which is of course Twitch chat. And some people, I think it's good advice for early people, if you're sort of younger in your career and still focusing on providing your commentary for any game, shut that off and don't pay attention to it because it can be terrible. But if you're a little more experienced, you can get immediate feedback on if you just glance over to the side of your second monitor and say, oh, they liked that joke, or oh, they're interested in what I'm talking about. This is sparking immediate discussion. There's some controversy. We should dig into this a little bit further. So you can look at the hard numbers, the metrics. You go to your YouTube retention rates and scroll through all the things, or you can look at your Twitch chat and say, what are they talking about? You can look at your YouTube comments and say, what parts are they talking about? What did they enjoy? What were my flash pan moments here that could turn into something bigger that I can bring back?
Now, I don't think one's going to be quite enough, especially not on one pylon there, which is a really bad call. Because, oh my god, look at the observer. Going to see Marines streaming across the ramp one at a time here. Do have two sentries out. It's going to be able to force field off the ramp a little bit. Forces all the Marines through a choke. There we go. Drops a third force field. But those are the last force fields that he has. He warps in one more sentry. There we go. Sees the force fields dissipate. Drives some Marines up the ramp, trying to bait out another force field. Not going to get it. Reconvenes with all his Marines, and it looks like wants to move forward. There we go. Sentries blocking off the ramp one more time. And Ball Savage is caught for now. Back home, Ball Savage dropping a factory. Dropping a third expansion. He's not completely all in, but he's damn close. Even more Marines coming up the ramp now. He's out of sentry energy. The Marines make it up the ramp, and here we go. Sentry's getting picked off. Marines pushing forward. I was going to say stimming forward, but they don't have stim. Marines pushing forward, and it looks like the natural has been seeded. Ball Savage is going to... Oh, God. No, Probius, don't look, buddy. Don't look. It's too hideous. Shield your eyes. 15 probe kills, and it doesn't matter if Ball Savage closes out the game. Now, this could be the beginning of the end for Zerg's OP. Ball Savage not even bothering. He's letting Zerg's OP GG's out, and the winner of Game 2 in, again, a very decisive manner, Ball Savage.
The democratization of all content is happening across the field. So we're seeing, you know, especially, I can speak especially about Starcraft, but we're seeing events with 100 viewers, with, you know, where the prize pool is worth more in dollars than it is with the number of viewers they're getting, just because people are so hungry to see specific content. They want to see their favorite player, their favorite map, their favorite team, their favorite whatever, at any price. So I think we're seeing a lot of smaller channels sort of rising up little by little overall. And then we're also seeing a lot of larger channels that have that established audience because they've had 10 years to grow their channel. And I think it's really frustrating for a lot of us to see some of these larger channels that were once really, really high quality content. They're now sort of dropping to the lowest common denominator streams, playing, you know, providing esports content that isn't as engaging as it could be because they're relying on their audience to continue to support them and trying to grow that base more broadly. So I think those are probably the two major interesting trends that I'm seeing now, which is smaller channels that are able to expose themselves a little bit more wildly, and then also larger channels that are maybe appealing to a broader audience but losing some of the pointed edge that they had diving into esports content, and hopefully people can find an opening to splinter off some of that audience to a bit. As a content creator, you don't get any of that. Some of the best commentators channels that I know now have no subscribers. They average 10 viewers per cast. They're incredible. They're funny, they're personable, they're knowledgeable, and they're great about the game, but they just haven't had the lucky turn, the break that they needed. They haven't, you know, made whatever connection they need, and they're still cranking it out every day. So as a commentator, as someone who's talking about the game, as an entertainer, I think it can be really frustrating to know that you're doing everything right, that you're putting out content that people love, and for some reason, you're not moving forward in a predictable manner. So I guess just don't get frustrated. Success comes in leaps and bounds. All it takes is one invitation, is one good tournament, is getting hosted by one major player on your Twitch stream one night, and then all of a sudden, everybody knows your name. So that's one of the things I think that people need to understand. You know, don't get frustrated because you're small and you're not big yet. It takes time, and more importantly, it takes a couple fortuitous opportunities to really push forward. It won't come steadily like a pro career. It'll come in jumps over time. So stick with it. No problem. I'm easy to find everywhere on the internet. I'm just my name, Creighton Olsen.
Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and click on the link below.